Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Well, there's kind of a lot going on, but I'm going to spend a large portion, the first part, with Daniel Smith's town hall. This is by far the most serious, smartest, and so far fairly transparent. Now, there have been a few things that have happened, like when she went away and the mice decided to play and decided to kind of hide a bunch of stuff from media, from their actual open and transparency sites on their billing. And when she got back, she straightened that out instantly, stating that it was more than anything, it was for safety reasons, because there's a lot of loonies out there who are specifically going into these, finding out where these representatives stay, and threats and stuff were going on. So they wanted to just hide that aspect. And in the course of it, the names haven't quite come out yet. I'm hoping they do on which ones of her caucus tried to hide the money as well. This should be exposed so that voters can actually get rid of them on the next bout, and hopefully maybe she would be smart and skid them and try and get new people voted in who are better fitted for her vision of Alberta. Now, I'm not going to dox anybody. There's other footage that I could dox some of the stupid people and their questions, and really they were using it more of a protest. But I really hope that the people who were there spread the word and share, especially these teachers, which you'll see, so that the parents can see what these teachers are teaching their kids. Now, she dabbles onto a whole pile, and near the end of it, she goes on a absolute, she just drops massive truth bombs. I mean massive truth bombs about Canada and the abuse, the absolute abuse. But she does a lot better on earlier comments as well about like running for prime minister and like. So without further ado, we'll get into that. And then I'm just going to kind of dabble onto a few other things that are going on. Of course, doing what I normally do, break propaganda and get the truth. Sorry. Just the truth, just the facts out to my viewers. If you're new, I urge you, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you are, punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. And I hope you enjoy this episode. And by the way, I got to throw out some compliments. I've got the greatest subscribers. I get a lot of people don't want to post on the actual videos, so I'll get emails. There are some incredibly intellectual people that watch my broadcast, and actually, for the most part, I have to say I haven't seen any. Everybody is just, they're keen, they're on the ball, and a few of them, even the ones that posted on the videos, like yesterday's, wow. You guys never cease to amaze me. I'm surrounded by very, very highly intellectual viewers. So that is a compliment to me, because it proves I'm doing the right thing when I've got people of that caliber who are following me and watching every single episode I put out. So just a shout out and a thank you, and really a compliment to you guys as well, guys and girls, because like I said, amazing, just absolutely amazing.
Right. Well over 45, but great question. So it was a constitution question, but this is equalization.
I think he was also asking me if I was going to run for prime minister, to which I will have to say no. You know, the joke that I make is I go to bed and sleep so well at night because I don't spend 1 minute thinking about how to win votes in Toronto or Montreal. So I just think about how to win votes here. But But there is we have a whole other section about whether we should be looking at constitutional change. So you might want to come up and give your ideas. I think there's about 9 different topics that we pursue in that video. So come back up to the mic when that one comes. You can tell me which ones you like the best.
Excellent. Thank you. So equalization and transfers. Go ahead, sir.
Hi. Appreciate everybody being here.
Sure. No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think one of the things you'll find as we're talking through each of these topics is these are the kind of things Quebec does already. And I think that's why they keep coming up every so often, is saying, is it time for us to take over tax collection, provincial police, pension, immigration? It's because Quebec already does that. And so that's one thing I would say. And I think you are also right. I mean, if we were to have a formula that said, okay, yeah, you can subsidize your electricity, but you can't get the difference from the equalization pod. As Professor Toom said, that alone would bridge the gap by 4.2 billion, or maybe higher if they're that much under market. But imagine if we did the same thing on resources. You can keep your vast supply of natural gas in the ground, Quebec, but we're going to impute a value of what you would gain in resource revenues if you developed it. And if you choose to keep it in the ground, that's great, but you can't get that differential from the rest of Canada and Alberta in particular. And so if we can start that kind of conversation, and talking about provinces take the lead, Albertans voted 62% to end equalization. And what was really interesting about what happened after that is Newfoundland and Labrador started looking at the program and said, why are we, the most indebted province with one of the lowest populations, why are we transferring money to Ottawa so Ottawa can give it to Ontario and Quebec? It was never designed for small provinces to transfer money to the big, rich, robust economies. And so BC and Saskatchewan joined them in a lawsuit saying that's not fair.
Now, the professor that's beside her, he's brilliant. He really is. Actually, a lot of the people she has in this panel, she has surrounded herself with just stellar people in their fields. And you'll notice that she refers to him lots, as well as a couple other, but especially him. He's broke down a lot of this, and she's nailed it. How can you take money from a province when your own province is against everything that they do? If you are blocking a pipeline, then any money that comes from the production of that resource shouldn't be given to that province. You're stopping it. You're stopping the production. So why should you reap the benefits of it? And the same thing with the way they do their books. Quebec has been cheating for decades on how they do their books. They purposely have figured a way to run their accounting so that they hide and they give out allowances and this whole fake green bull crap. And like she was saying, like with the dams and the electricity, why are they using tax dollars to supplement and cut the costs of the real costs of what their electricity is, in order to run huge deficits and then take money from Alberta that then pays for those, welfare program in order to make it seem like this hydro is so cheap? It's not. Let alone the sheer devastation that hydro dams do to the environment. And I urge, if you're a new viewer, to check out my episode on hydro dams. This has been known for 40 years, and it's only within the last 10 years, 8 years, 7 years, where a lot more people have been doing the actual science and the environmental studies and come forward saying these things are worse. They are worse than using fossil fuels. So we'll just let her carry on here.
Need equivalent per capita transfers. So we already have 4 provinces that are saying we need to make some changes on this. So I think the ball is rolling, and we just have to see what the next stage is.
Promise we'll do a straw poll on each subject before we wrap it.
He might want a response. Sorry, don't mean to over moderate with you. He and I were both talk show hosts at one point, but just because we've got a smaller audience,
yeah.
we might be able to allow for a follow up.
I think so. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my question for a follow-up. Is there any way to use Quebec's system against them by using their model as a best practice? And basically, by using that model, it would kind of redistribute the fairness across, because we'd be using the same policies that Quebec is using against them.
Brilliant question. Kudos to this gentleman. Brilliant question.
Can I pose that question to Michael Binion? And the reason you're looking at me like you're not sure, Michael, but this is what we discussed a little bit earlier. Are you comfortable to chat about some of this?
Sure. Well, it sort of comes up under the constitutional question in a way, but first of all, I want to make the comment, Premier, let's not start any discussions about leaving gas in the ground, please. I'm not for that. Okay, so let's not talk about using it against Quebec. Let's talk about using it for us. I would start with that, because I think Quebec does some things that are very effective for themselves, and one of them is that they have worked extremely hard to demonstrate the ability to govern themselves, which of course, if you have aspirations of more autonomy or more sovereignty, if you can't actually govern yourself, then you're a little bit like the teenager saying, I'm going to move out of the house, but I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent and I don't have a job, right? So Quebec has really taken the effort to show responsible self-government. And I think that gives them a lot more impact when they talk about, if we're not treated fairly within the Confederation, well, we actually are in a position to do something about it, because they've shown they can govern themselves. And I think that's the number one thing Alberta can do, is to prove and demonstrate that we also can govern ourselves.
Now, the problem that a lot of people don't understand, that think that they can, create this Quebec style system within Alberta, staying within Canada. This is where I just, here's a reality check. If Alberta formed their own Parti de Québécois, a separatist kind of identity, which they constantly voted for, like Quebec does, they don't have enough seats. They'll get nothing. Zilch. Nada. Quebec holds a huge amount of seats. They choose majority governments. This is why I like to say, Quebec, please leave. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. We'll cut off all your funding, and then we'll see how long you last. And in doing so, we'll level the playing field, because most of the people out there, it seems as though most of the people through history, and again, previous episodes, they're always voting Liberal. They are so full of themselves because of their propaganda. I have never seen a media lie as much as the media in Quebec. They make CBC look like angels with cut wings. It's horrible. I worked coast to coast. I did a lot of time through Quebec. I had people that I worked with that would live there, and what I showed them blew their minds. They couldn't believe it. We could go from one rate to the other, English to French, and CBC would say one complete opposite thing in Quebec, and in the complete opposite to the rest of Canada. And all of the independent outlets that are huge in Quebec are all serial liars. They're all serial liars. They literally just, and very flagrantly lie. Just blatantly lie. This whole push for this Quebec, please leave. It allows the Conservatives to have a much closer election base, where we would kind of just destroy the Liberals on a 50-50 basis, as opposed to this whole, 90% tenure that they always seem to get. We've had two large Conservative governments in the last 35 years? It's ridiculous. So I'm all for Quebec leaving. So what he said is right. They have the ability to govern themselves, but I wish he would have straightened that out, saying because they have such a large control of our federal parliament, Alberta will never have that. You don't have the population. Lord knows you don't want that population in the province of Alberta. It's just too many people. So you will never aspire to having the power provincially in a federal government. Never. This is why literally the only thing you can do, the only thing we can do in Saskatchewan as well, is cut our ties, is separate. By being autonomous, it gives us all the power and ability. We know that we make piles of money. We would have we would be ranked within the top 5. And this goes for Saskatchewan as well. I think when I broke it down, it was somewhere within the 7th largest GDP per nation. Alberta would be the 3rd. Think about the wealth. That's one thing that he should have, and maybe he didn't quite do it because he doesn't really want that separatist idea to go, oh, so really what you're fighting for won't work. That's kind of why I think he cut his answer short, because it's a bit of a white lie. So let's just move on.
The unfortunate thing that we've discovered is that the federal government is not living up to its commitment under the contract. We're supposed to have 1,911 officers. At any given time, we only have 1,400.
So she's talking about the RCMP, and I just want to go back to the equalization thing. 60 plus some people voted in favor of ending equalization or a renegotiation of it. What did the Liberal Party do? Nothing. Alberta has no power within this fake country. There's no power. It doesn't matter if 99% of them voted for it. You will never have the power to change the equalization when you've got full Liberal provinces voting federally and keeping Liberals in power. They love our money. They love milking the West. So, yeah, again, sorry, separatism is the only way to fix equalization.
For a variety of reasons, vacancies and what have you. And it's the same story in the rest of the country, that 20 to 30% vacancies across the country. And Mike Ellis has taken, the worst part of it is that they won't even tell us what their detachment strength is. So Mike Ellis has had to take to going to each detachment to find out what the bench strength is versus what we're entitled to. He told me one detachment in Northern Alberta that was supposed to have a complement of 23 officers, it only has 5.
Now, Saskatchewan has the same problem. And there's no transparency. We're spending millions upon millions of dollars renting the RCMP, who federally isn't coming through with what they're supposed to. They're not being honest in what their obligations are. Instead, they hide the numbers. Now, I don't blame the officers. For the most part, most of them are pretty damn good. They're out to do their job. They're stuck having to follow the federal law. They have no choice. And with the few that I have kind of fairly close contact with and talk to, they're absolutely embarrassed at a lot of the things that they have to do. And they find it incredibly hard. One I know is actually going to take early retirement because, well, she's tired of repeat offenders, the revolving door. And after this last election, this will be her last couple years, and she's going to take early retirement because it's just not worth it. When you go home and you think to yourself, did I do good today? And you go, yes, but it didn't matter. When you work your whole life and dedicate it to the protection of citizens around, and you can't do your job because the government literally just sends these criminals back out on the streets, your job seems meaningless. So The RCMP are, like I said, they're ripping us off. Big time. Listen to this.
So when you look at that, if you wonder what is taking so long, why can't I get police response? That's the reason, is they're just not living up to their commitment. So Grand Prairie, they did the math on it. They looked at their complement of officers, what it was costing. They realized that they could either save some money by going to a local force, or they could increase their complement, and that's what they're doing. So they are moving over 5 years. I think their first hiring happens in 2026. They will go from having 55 officers to 110. And when they went out to call for resumes, they got 200 people who responded. So I would say we have a great history in the province of having municipal governments take the lead. Calgary, Edmonton, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, Grand Prairie, Taber, Lacombe, and a couple of others. We've got 7 Indigenous police forces as well. That's likely what will happen is that most of the larger municipalities will go for a municipal police force. And then we have an incredible team of sheriffs that have been filling the gap. They do SCAN, which is shutting down drug houses. They do surveillance to be able to get drug trafficking busted. We had to deploy them at the border to do border patrol because the RCMP is not located in southern Alberta. And we also have them doing fugitive apprehension, and they've caught thousands of bad guys. So I would say that our sheriffs have demonstrated that they're doing the policing, and we're going to make sure they have the status to continue doing it.
Moving on.
Hello. I was just wondering, with the unequal representation in the government between the eastern and western provinces, why would the eastern provinces want to work with Alberta to reduce their own representation and give us more representation?
Another great question.
Boy, that's a good question. And there's like 10 of you that could answer that. So whoever's first will be like Family Feud. Hit the buzzer and go.
Let me just give you a story so that you can see that the issue really is it's the federal politicians that probably don't want to change it. In particular, the ones who are benefiting from the system that we have right now. Because I was having this conversation with the Nova Scotia Premier. I was saying, don't you understand why we're so upset about the Senate distribution? Tam, you've got like 1 million people in your province. We've got 5 million people in our province. You have 10 Senate seats, and we have 6 Senate seats. Can you see why that's a problem? He said, oh, I didn't know we had 10 Senate seats. Like, that's how disconnected that federal chamber is from the day-to-day decision-making of the premiers. If you think that the premiers spend a whole lot of time thinking about what's happening in the Senate, they don't, because we have no control over who gets appointed there. That's a total federal decision. So that becomes an act of will by the federal government. And that's what I'm saying is that I think that if we can find some areas of common ground with the fellow premiers, then we might be able to make some of these changes. I might leave it to somebody else to talk about the House of Commons representation.
Oh, so she's absolutely correct. The kicker is that most people out east, the majority of them, have no idea how poorly represented the West is. They don't know because media is running crap about they're purposely cherry picking certain comments that have come up and trying to make these town halls look like there's some horrible thing and Daniel Smith's such a horrible person. They're not showing you the reality, the transparency, and the blatant honesty. Sorry, just the truth, just the facts that are coming out of these town halls. Mainstream doesn't want the East to know. They don't want them to know. They've been busy for generations teaching the East to hate and despise the West. They don't want to change, and they won't change, especially now that they get massive record funding from the fascist government, Liberal Party. It's embarrassing.
Hi, my name is Sarah. Today, for the first time in my career,
Listen to this. This is the... If this is your if this teacher teaches your child, you better pull your kid. And the other few teachers that are behind her clapping like a bunch of blind, deaf, dumb seals. Pull your kids. Pull them.
carried out 400 personally funded books out of my classroom. I'll be teaching without books for the first time in over 20 years due to the UCP's censorship. Our school library is now closed until further notice. Teachers are being forced to out children. This is not my job. Many of us have been teaching in classrooms where temperatures climb to above 30 degrees on hot days. Our schools are no longer safe as a result of chronic underfunding by the UCP. We are the lowest funded per student in Canada. While you highlight the economic contributions of our city makes to Alberta, our schools remain dangerously neglected.
So
I'm getting there. Premier Smith, if creating safer communities is truly your goal, why do you continue to ignore the safety crisis unfolding in our schools?
Thank you.
How can we trust your policing goals,
Thank you.
pension plans, and provincial rights when you neglect our most vulnerable, our children?
Okay, so
Well, can I
Alberta Next is what we're trying to do. Premier, totally your call.
I'll see if I can connect it back to the panel topics. One thing I would invite every one of you to do is to go online and look at the graphic images that we are taking out of elementary schools. I wouldn't...
Now, these would be the books that this teacher is bringing in. Listen carefully, especially if you're from Alberta. And if you're from, well, Fort McMurray, if this is a teacher that your child is being taught from, pull them out.
be able to... No, I'm going to be honest with you. I wouldn't be able...
Overwhelming response.
I wouldn't be able to hold up an image, because we're broadcasting this, I wouldn't be able to hold up an image without a warning of graphic image of pornographic materials, including detailed sex acts, because it would offend our audience. And if our audience, adult audience, would be offended by that, a 7-year-old shouldn't be watching that.
That's it.
So
Here, here.
I'm glad that...
Here.
And if this is not...
So one of the things that
so-
we need to talk about when we
so-
talk about tax collection is how different it is from what the feds do and what the province does.
So let me connect
this
this
is
back, though.
what I would like to ask.
Let me connect this back, though, because that was exactly what I was saying, is that we have to have... What's responsible government means that you also have to have line of sight on where the dollars are going. And my earlier response to that other teacher, you can do the math, too. How do you have 37 kids in a classroom? We're paying $12,000 per student, $444,000. Something is missing. Something is getting lost in translation, and there is too much administration, and we've
Here,
got
here.
to address that. That would be the other part.
Okay.
And when it comes to safety in schools, I mean, one of the things that we are doing is that we're restoring confidence in our police service. There was a defund the police campaign that I think demoralized our frontline services. And that's part of the reason why we're reinvesting in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Indigenous forces, as well as in the sheriffs, so that we have more ability to not only do the policing in our local communities, but also be able to provide those resources in the schools the way we used to in the past. So
Okay.
that's part of the reason why we're also thinking that we will be able to have more local policing, more local decisions, if we have more ability to take over that area. I'd linked it back, Bruce.
You did.
Moving forward.
It was a comment that goes back to the taxes, and when the number was thrown out again about the amount spent per student, which again is the lowest, you can throw out that number, but if you multiply 37 students by that amount, there's part of the first problem. There should not be 37 students in any of
Okay,
those
thank you.
classes. Second is that
Hey,
once you take that number, sure, it may pay for a teacher and an aide. Who's paying for the principal, the secretary, the counselor, the heat,
Gotcha.
the lights,
Okay.
the technology, and everything else that goes into the school?
it's not Alberta Next, ma'am. Like, I'm trying my best, but it's got nothing to do with it.
Let me linkage.
Like, Danielson, you gotta give her credit. And this guy's trying to keep it on topic, but she's not letting this go. She's trying to break it down so that these teachers can actually understand the logistics, the math, the common sense. Listen to Daniel Smith. She just lays it all out there.
let me do a linkage.
Okay,
We
you do a
give-
linkage, Premier, but I'm not going to
what we're
listen to
talking
somebody
about,
screaming
what
in a
we're
microphone.
talking about
And he's right. These are loony teachers. Like, please, find this locally. You'll find different angles. If you're in Fort McMurray, find out who these teachers are. Pull your kids. Pull your kids. These people are scary. They have no idea of the reality of what is going on. This isn't just a grassroots Conservative Party problem. All of this stems from the top down, from the abuse and neglect of the federal government to our prairie provinces. They shut down our industries. They shut down every single thing they can. They rake all of the money they can from us. What's left for us as citizens? Nothing. It drives all of the money and ability that a province has to spend on its province out of our province. It just steals the wealth away. This is where separatism is. It's the only answer.
tonight. Is Ottawa over? Do you want to hear the answer? Ottawa overtaxing us. I mentioned that at the beginning of the evening. That our program costs are 70% of all tax dollars. We only collect 40%. Ottawa collects 60%, and then they use political means to transfer it. Alberta, year after year, has $20 to $25 billion that is siphoned out of our system to go to Ottawa so that it can be spent mostly in Quebec, but also in other places that vote Liberal. We have been watching this for years. $600 billion in the last 40 or 50 years that have been taken out of this province. You don't think we might be able to do a little bit more on social spending if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? You don't think we'd be able to cut taxes a bit if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? It is $5,000 per Albertan that every single year gets transferred out of this province for political reasons so that the Liberals can continue to spend it in places that vote Liberal. That is what is happening in the province and in the country.
Thank you. Okay,
So,
let's go up here again. If you haven't been to the mic yet, go ahead. If you've been to the mic, I'm sorry, we're going to just
Boom.
finish with who hasn't.
Mic drop. Like, way to go, Danielle. And again, why isn't the mainstream showing that? Because they can't debunk it. It's the truth. It's the absolute truth.
I'm wondering, the question is about the provincial taxes. Is there something we could maybe do to tweak the provincial taxes so that we could have a surcharge on people who are flying in and out of Fort McMurray and taking the taxes, which I believe is billions of dollars, because our economy in Fort McMurray is really in trouble. I was on a meeting today. Grand Prairie is booming. Alberta is booming. I believe there was 59,000 starts in Alberta, and we had basically none. And we are the golden goose for the whole province. Is there some way to put a surtax on provincial taxes?
Premier, do you want to, or do you want to add it to your closing comments?
Well, I might just say, if there's others who want to speak, I might just say this is something that Brian Jean ran on in the leadership campaign. And I think the aerial tour we took to get today just shows there's probably 50,000 people living in camps if you look at the number of spaces that they have and the fly in, fly out.
Yeah.
And that's another example of people coming here but paying taxes in another jurisdiction. I have no idea what the value of that is because we don't really know. But it does give me a good talking point when I'm with the premiers about how every single one of them probably have thousands of people working and making money here in Fort McMurray from a product that they don't want us to continue to develop. So that's one part of it.
Yes.
So now, if Alberta and Saskatchewan, because Saskatchewan has the same thing, if Alberta and Saskatchewan were their own country, all of this would change because the taxations would stay here. Just like if you go and work down in the States, you have to file those taxes. The taxes are paid there. All of a sudden, the rest of Canada would realize, holy crap, I have to move to Alberta if I'm going to work in any of these fields, because if I fly in and fly out, I can't get taxed 2 ways half Sunday and make any money. And it would also remove what out west a lot of people call freeloaders. They're the people that do. They fly in for these great wages and then fly out. And they fly to provinces where their money goes a lot further because they're making huge dollars in Alberta. And they live in these really remote, small provinces, especially Atlantic provinces, that are all liberal. Why is our money supporting that? That would just change the demographics 100%. That's a lot of, you think about over 50,000 fly-ins. 50,000. That's a lot of revenue. And those are a lot of very good paying jobs that could be Albertan and Saskatchewan jobs.
But do talk to Brian afterwards, because we have been talking about ways in which we can create some carrots and incentives for companies to be able to do to hire more locally, and I think some of it comes down to having infrastructure built so that it goes closer to some of the sites, so that it's easy to commute in the morning. So it was a really good tour that we went on today, but do talk to Brian.
Fabulous question. Absolutely fabulous question. It's something when I was in the patch we talked about lots, especially during peak, because you get a lot of these people who would just come in, and the second that the times got a little bit rough, and you got to remember, the oil field is one of the only occupations where the wages fluctuate depending on the market, and you take it with a grain of salt. I've had years where I lost 66% of my income because oil prices were plummeting, and in order for us to keep working to try to get ahead until the oil prices came back, which usually was when you had an election and got rid of bad governments, which we haven't been able to do because of propaganda. So people aren't aware of that. Well, what happens is then all of a sudden these people who they don't want, they're like, well, I'm not taking that. So they get up and they leave. And then it hits with the unemployment, and then we're fighting to try and find people and train people locally. And the nice part about it, though, is Saskatchewan got onto it, and they put big dollars into training local residents to fill those jobs. So over the course of the years, we had less and less people from out of province coming back in during booms because we had already trained at a lower rate, mind you, but people were still making good money and people want to work. Next thing you know, you've got people from Saskatchewan who are there for when the times do get good. And they're not going to leave when times get rough. They stay with it, which strengthens that entire occupation and that industry. So Alberta's got to get on with it. They got to get serious.
My name is Lindsay. I was just wondering, I'm personally hoping that these topics discussed tonight here are preparing us for separation down the road. What would happen if you put these things to a vote and some of them get no and some get yes? Would that mean we can't separate down the road?
Well, Premier, I don't know if you want to take it on at the end. The subjective ones are tough because, it'd be hypothetical.
Well, all I've said is, there is a petition that is collecting signatures right now, and I'm waiting to see whether or not it gets enough signatures to be put on the ballot. The way it's written is, do you want to remain in Canada? And the question would be yes or no. And we would have to sort of grapple with what happens if that gets on the ballot. And the answer is no. That's what happened in Brexit. I think that the Brexiteers put forward a very similar type of proposal, the ones who wanted to remain. Do you want to remain in the European Union? And I think they got surprised because no was the answer. So that is why I am hoping, and this is what our strategy has been, let's find ways to make the Federation work so people do not feel like they need to put a ballot question forward like that. That's how I feel about it personally. I have supported a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. I don't know that it gets any easier to build a pipeline to the BC Northwest Coast if we are a separate country. I think it gets a whole lot harder, personally. But so that's why I've taken a bit of a different approach. But I respect the democratic process. I will wait and see what happens with that particular referendum question. And we'll put forward our own questions. That's what we're trying to get from the crowd here is, have we identified the right questions to ask? Are we missing anything that we put we should put forward. But when it comes to the question of independence, I'm leaving that to citizens to decide if they want that through the petition process.
We're just too.
And now that in general, she kind of threw that in there. This is why I say she's definitely not a separatist, because she does do things like that, and it's a political answer, and she's wrong on that. It's actually easier. If once Alberta becomes a country, it's easier for them, because any country that follows through with any of the charter of the United Nations, you cannot restrict or stop any type of border withholding or stopping the economic growth of the nation beside you, especially if that nation is part of the UN. There's a bunch of rules and laws that fall into that. So it actually becomes easier for Alberta and Saskatchewan to build pipelines. If anything, it forces the Liberal government, it forces the East to lose control over their ability to stop and take over our resources. And I hope that any of the new any viewers that are just watching me, check my previous episode. They're taking over. They're trying to take over Canada. The global elite have been purchasing through government manipulation and legislation. They've crushed the West. They came in like a bunch of buzzards, and they are picking at our carcasses and buying strategic sectors. They're the ones. So wake up, Canada. Wake up. One last clip from Daniel.
We've got some great ideas. Any closing thoughts on what you've heard and what you want people to walk away with?
Well, there's lots, and I hear pressures, whether it's individuals feeling like they can't keep up. I feel we see the pressures of people feeling they're not getting access to services. We're feeling pressure on social services, and all of these things are connected. They are all connected. Is that we don't have the dollars that we need to fund our areas of jurisdiction. And when we don't have that, we either end up running deficits, which we have for years, or we have higher taxes than people can afford, or we end up having queues and rationing. And none of that is optimal. And so the question is, what do we do to solve that? And I would just say, when we say that we have an Ottawa problem, I just want you to walk away remembering this, because it's so impactful on this region. If we had built Northern Gateway instead of having it canceled by the federal government, if we had built Energy East instead of them pulling the plug because they couldn't see a way of getting it through Quebec because of opposition, if we'd had a federal government advocating for us for Keystone XL, we today would be producing 2.5 million barrels of oil more per day. And those of you who know the value of each barrel, that is roughly $55 billion a year in additional GDP, of which governments take about 40%. Feds and us split it about equally. So you can do a heck of a lot if you have those dollars. You can build more health facilities, build more roads, build more schools. You can pay fair wages. You can hire more education assistants. But as long as we continue to have a federal government that prevents us from being able to generate the wealth, we're going to have these chronic problems. And, I suppose people can say, well, it's good enough. Maybe we only need to aspire to having 4.3 million barrels a day. But even still, even if we just stayed where we are, to have the federal government still taking $20 to $25 billion more per year, while we end up short on all of the areas that are continuing to grow, that's a problem. When we talk about the pressures that we have on schools, heck, we had 200,000 additional students come here in the last 3 years because of immigration. When you look at, can you get a family doctor? Can you get a nurse practitioner? Some of the pressure is because we have more people here and we don't have as many doctors willing to take on more patients. When you look at the waiting lists in autism, I have people who tell me that they've moved here because they've heard that we have such great programs. And so we've got more people moving here to take advantage of our programs that we're not able to pay for the people who are the taxpayers here. So these are all connected, as I say. It's why we need to take more control over immigration so we have a sustainable amount and we're putting the economic interest first. And it's why we need to have more control over our taxes, and it's why we need to have more control over our economic future by being able to determine what our policies should be. Because we cannot achieve everything that everybody in this room wants to achieve unless we have more control over our destiny, more control, more particularly over how we manage those dollars. So I would just ask you to take that away. It's part of the reason why we're going through the consultation. Anyone who gets involved in politics probably has been talking about these kinds of things for as long as I have, about 30 years. But the general public, they're worried about the day-to-day. And so that's what we're trying to vet is, are these issues that political parties talk about, are they something that the general public sees an interest in us doing? That's what we want to do. And to go back to what Michael Binion has said, is that at some point along your development, you have to decide, do we have the money, do we have the means, do we have the population that makes it make sense for us to take on more of the same kind of powers that the other big provinces have? Because Quebec has been doing them from the beginning, but now that we're our size, maybe we couldn't have done it when we were impoverished in 1932 and went bankrupt. Maybe we couldn't have done it when we only had 1 million people, but maybe we can do it today. And that's, again, part of the reason why we're doing these consultations. So thanks for your honest...
Wow. That is the truth. And that's what's going on in Saskatchewan as well. Because of the federal government's policies, especially the hate for the West, just outright hate, and this new Liberal Party, which isn't Carney's new, because Carney is the original Trudeau party. He's the general. He's guided them throughout every single stage while he's gone through with Brookfield and the global elite and bought up and taken advantage through different companies and corporations to use your tax dollars, heat pumps, and all the rest of this for their own wealth, without being able to be, well, wealthy, without the freedom to build industry, to move forward. You can't have the social help. You can't have the good schools, the high-paid teachers, the high-paid doctors and nurses, the top-notch healthcare system. You can't have it when you're restricted by a socialist ideology that the East keeps voting in. It won't work. It doesn't work. We're living it. This is 10 years. 10 years. And now we've got how many more years, possibly? This is ridiculous. The East just keeps building walls and resting that on the shoulders of the West. It's time to go. It's time to go. And now, this is propaganda, people. Listen to this, and the zero correction made by your CBC, state-sponsored Canadian bullshit channel.
You've been in Europe, the Prime Minister has been in Europe, and we heard from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who has been, maybe not a huge surprise, but a bit critical of what's been signed over the last few days with the Prime Minister in particular. And he says that the one deal with Germany on critical minerals is a phony declaration that is unenforceable with no money attached, and he's coming home with nothing of consequence. What's your defense of the government's agenda over there in Europe? What do you say to Mr. Poilievre?
I think Mr. Poilievre needs to look at himself in the mirror.
This is an airhead. But the blatant lies, people, CBC, at their best.
When he's describing what you just said, I think he's talking about his own policy.
Why do you say that?
Because ultimately, he, as the opposition leader, has been talking a lot, but with no action. Never did we hear him that we should get to 3.5% of defense budget. Never did we hear him talking about the fact that our armed forces should get a pay raise in order to recruit better and to make sure that we could support our strong men and women. Never did we hear that we should increase defense procurement to make sure that we build more in Canada. Never did we hear from him neither the fact that ultimately we need to be less reliant on the US to become closer to Europe, and that's exactly what we are doing. And never did we hear him about also everything that is linked to our airspace sector and F-35s. So I could go on and on and on, but I think we have not a lot of time for this interview.
I want to start where we ended with the Canada-U.S. relationship. And
there's CBC. Why not fact check CBC? Oh, right, because this is your agenda. This is your agenda. Let's fact check for you. Now, this is already later. This is just very easily. I just found a clip, and it was one of the. It's not even. This is before Carney. This is Trudeau in power. This is 6 months ago, but this is something he has been saying before he was even the leader of the Conservative Party. But this is just a great video just to put some truth to CBC.
And that is why common sense conservatives condemn President Trump's massive, unjust, and unjustified tariffs, which will damage both American and Canadian economies. Canada is the United States' closest friend, greatest ally, and most important neighbor. We share the longest undefended border. We fought alongside the Americans in 2 world wars, Korea, and Afghanistan, where we lost 158 of our brilliant young men and women to avenge the attacks of 9/11 on New York and Washington. There is no justification whatsoever for these tariffs or this treatment. Canada will never be the 51st state. We are an independent, proud, and strong nation. I'd like to speak first to our American friends. You are our friends. You are our neighbors. We share the longest undefended border in the history of the world. You buy our products, and we buy yours. You have a trade surplus with us when energy is excluded. And when it is included, the deal is even better for you because you buy our oil and our gas at massive price discounts. Not because we're nice Canadians, but because here at home we've made really dumb decisions to prevent us from exporting our energy to any other countries.
Boom!
But either way, Americans are better off with this friendship. We share a continent, we share the same risks and the same potential enemies from around the world. Those kinds of enemies can metastasize into real dangers and actual attacks, as you saw suddenly and unexpectedly on 9/11. It's good to have friends when those sorts of things happen. And let me ask my American friends this question. Even if you believe in tariffs, how is it possible to put a 25% tariff on Canada and only a 10% tariff on China? In what strategic mindset does that make sense? If it's to do with fentanyl, the fentanyl's coming from China. It's killing our people too. We both have to do more to stop it.
Boom!
But we can do more when we do it together. Now, here at home, my message to the Liberal government: put aside partisan interests and recall Parliament. It is insane that in this great crisis, Parliament is shut down to deal with a crisis and a power struggle within the Liberal Party. Let's put aside partisan, political interests and recall Parliament to pass into place a common sense Canada First plan. And here's that plan. 1, we must retaliate dollar for dollar, carefully aiming those tariffs at maximizing the impact on American companies while minimizing the impact on Canadian. We must maximize the impact on American companies while minimizing the impact on Canadian consumers and businesses. That means targeting U.S. products that A, we can do without, B, we can buy elsewhere, or C, best of all, that we can make here at home. A best example of that would be steel and aluminum. We make the best and cleanest steel and aluminum here, but we've lost a lot of jobs to China and the United States. We should put tariffs on American steel and aluminum so that we can bring home that production to this country. 2, the tariffs must not be a tax grab. None of the money from the tariffs should stay in government coffers or be spent on unrelated government priorities. All of it should go back to the workers and businesses that are affected, and most of it should go back in the form of a massive tax cut And that is why I'm calling for the passage of an immediate emergency bring it home tax cut. The tax cut would be designed to save jobs, create jobs, crush inflation, and boost our economy. We need to cut taxes on work, investment, energy, home building, and making stuff at home. Let's start by axing the Liberal carbon tax and the Liberal capital gains tax hike. They should be the first on the chopping block. 4, we must immediately scrap the Liberal anti-energy law C-69 and greenlight job-creating projects now. That includes LNG plants, pipelines, mines, factories, port expansions, so that we can get our products to overseas markets without going through and profiting the United States. It was insane for us to block our industries before this crisis. It is a fatal mistake now. No longer can we tolerate special interests, politicians, and worst of all, corporate lobbyists who profit by shutting down industries, blocking resources in Canada while profiting off them in Brazil, the Middle East, China, and elsewhere. We must bring home production and self-reliance to our country. Which brings me to 5. We need to knock down interprovincial trade barriers to have truly free trade across our country. We are in this state because we sell twice as much to the Americans as we sell to ourselves. These interprovincial barriers are destructive. They kill jobs, they drive up consumer prices, and they cost the average family $6,000 a year. Let's knock them down, and let's be a truly free trading economy ourselves. 6, we must rebuild our military and take back control of our borders to regain the confidence of our partners, assert our sovereignty, protect our people, and put Canada first. Let us be clear. Our border needs to be taken back into our control, not to please the president, but to protect our own people. The fact that we have 20,000 to 500,000 people here illegally, according to the government, was a problem before these tariffs. The fact that we've lost 47,000 people to fentanyl overdoses should never have been allowed to happen. We must secure our border to stop the guns that are killing our people. 85% of gun crime is done with illegal guns smuggled over the border. We must secure our border, again, to protect our own people and save the lives of our own children. And we must rebuild our military to protect our sovereignty, assert our strength, and keep our nation strong and free. Finally, we must lock arms with American economic interests that favor Canada, the workers and businesses that depend on trade with Canada should be marshaled to pressure the administration to back down. We must go to key states that will be up for grabs in the congressional elections 2 years from now and let their congressmen and senators know that they will be running on a bad economic record if refinery workers have lost jobs because Canadian oil can no longer make it to them, or if young families can't buy homes because lumber is even more expensive for home builders, or families that are already suffering from inflation are paying more for gas because our energy has become more expensive due to American tariffs. We must lock arms with all of those economic interests in the states to build an American coalition against the tariffs and in favor of free trade between our two great countries. As always, we will stand strong with growing confidence. We are the second biggest landmass in the world, 41 million brilliant people, the third biggest supply of oil, fifth biggest supply of natural gas, biggest supply of uranium and potash. We have not 1, 2, or 3 coasts. We have, if you include the Great Lakes, we actually have 4 coasts that can take us to tide water. We have the biggest supply of fresh water anywhere on Earth, the 5th biggest supply of farmland. We should be the richest nation on Earth. These tariffs are a wake-up call that it is time for us to meet our potential. It is time for us to be a country that can trade with itself, a country that builds homes quickly for its youth, a country that allows entrepreneurs to succeed quickly and profitably so that success is once again rewarded, a country that allows hard work to pay off, a country that harvests its own resources, that secures its borders to protect its people, that builds its military to protect its sovereignty, unites its people to protect our common history and common future. We will always put Canada first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Let's bring it home.
Well, why didn't CBC debunk? They don't want you to know the truth. They really don't. This was put out. This is the shift in Canadian immigration composition and its effect on wages. This was put out by the Bank of Canada. It was kind of like just out there. After lots of different searching, I came across this and I was like, whoa, why didn't this get mainstream news? Oh, because they don't want you to know what's in it. It talks all about the realities of what's going on from immigration. As always, I post all of the links in the description below. I urge you, click on this. Watch how they word certain things within it. And then, right on the site, you can click like here, the O'Donnell and Scrutard folders, the Picot and Ho folder, the Champagne Etel, and you can actually read the truth. So they did discuss kind of quietly that immigration was taking our jobs and lowering the wage in Canada. That corporations are taking advantage of this. That this will cause record job loss. That this will cause record homelessness. That this will cause soaring prices in houses. That this will cause everything that we are seeing today. Everything.
Negative winds are blowing with youth unemployment worse than we thought. According to a new report, it's at recessionary levels. That's not good. And it means that those between the ages of 15 and 24 are really having a tough time finding work. We sent CTV's Adrian Gabriel to check it.
Do you think, CTV? Do you? I'm not going to play the rest because it goes into some propaganda. Oh, well, this is surprising and we're not really in a recession. We're in a recession. We are actually in a depression. The only reason you're not seeing it is because the government is blowing record amounts of money we don't have. This is going to crash. I'm warning everybody out there. Canada is going to crash. It's inevitable. It's gonna happen. Period.
Hey,
listen.
You know how bad it is? Like, bad. Like, we all know it's bad, but this is bad statistics that come out. For young people, getting married, buying homes. Buying homes, right? So that's, you can be young and rent, but let's think about buying homes. Horrible, horrible statistical review. 1990. Let's go back to 1990. 30-year-old married couples. How many bought homes? They're 30, they're married. How many of that group bought homes in 1990? 43% of them. So 43% of them either bought that year or had already bought of 30-year-olds. That was the makeup of purchases in that age bracketing. So let's fast forward 35 years. 35 years seems like a long time. Some people weren't born, but still, it's 35. It is not 135 years. It's 35 years. 2025. 43% has gone to 12%. That is 30-year-olds buying a home, married couples buying a home, 12%.
12%.
2025. 43, 35 in 1990, 12%.
Now, this is the Angry Mortgage Podcast. I ran across this guy a month ago. I'm hooked. He's awesome. And he doesn't hold no punches. Like every now and then I get mad and I will throw a swear out there too. So it does happen. I try very hard. I've had a few people comment saying, ixay on the, vulgarity, and I do apologize. Sometimes it does happen. I try very hard. But it's doing what I do, seeing the insanity. Sometimes it's very hard not to allow my emotions and what we call rig Latin. That's what you get from the patch working on the oil rigs. It's called rig Latin. Where profanity is part of our vocabulary. So what if I do it, sometimes I don't even know I do it, and I don't catch it in the editing, or I just scroll by it because I'm used to it. So I do apologize. So I'm going to cut out a little wee bit of this, but I'm going to scroll a little wee bit further ahead. This guy is awesome.
And definitely in the last 10 and 15 years, but particularly the last 10, and certainly right now with all current levels of government, it's not about home ownership. It's about the words affordable. We need affordable housing. I'm going to tell you something about the word affordable. You substitute rental for affordable. That's what it really means. Don't be fooled. Don't believe the bullshit. Affordable, which you hear blah, 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 blah from everybody, whether it's Kearney or Ford or Eby or whoever the hell it is, affordable means rentals, sometimes subsidized rentals. You don't hear the words home ownership out of any of these politicians anymore. That's disappeared. And that's because it's too hard and it's easier just not to talk about it, because talking about it will get you into trouble. So don't talk about it.
He's bang on. You will own nothing and you will be happy. You will pay rent till the day you die. So that Brookfield and all of these very wealthy Laurentian and global elites get wealthier. Largest wage gap in recorded history in Canada under this Liberal government. Think about that. Think about that. Now, not a lot of people are talking about this, but Crown Royal Bottler is closing down the Ontario plant and shifting some operations to the US. Oh, yes. Elbows up. Elbows up. You want to take American liquor off the shelves, Dougie? You goofball? You don't think it's going to have an effect on the larger purchasing volume to a lot of these companies? Who do you think buys a majority of the liquor? Yeah, America. Do you think they're going to stay in Canada? Now, Crown Royal. But he goes, that's Canadian. Is it? Is Tim Hortons Canadian? Spirits maker Diageo will be ceasing operations at its bottling facility in Amherstburg, Ontario early next year as it shifts some bottling volume onto the U.S. company announced on Thursday. The facility, which bottles Crown Royal products, will close in February in a move aimed at improving its North American supply chain. Bottling at the Amherstburg facility intended for the U.S. market would be shifting stateside, while bottling for Canadian consumers would move to its Valleyfield, Quebec location. About 200 jobs will be affected. Oh, we're not done. Oh no. Why? Why would we be done now?
Unionized workers at a Windsor auto parts supplier are off the job today, locked out by their employer. Workers at Titan Tool and Die on Howard Avenue began picketing today after Unifor Local 195 says the company locked them out following stalled contract talks. The union says management is demanding wage and benefit concessions despite employees freezing wages for more than a decade. Back in March, workers blocked a truck from moving equipment to the U.S., accusing the company of using tariffs as an excuse to cut jobs.
Now, this company is gone as of 3 days ago. Closed shop, moved everything down to the States. Way to go. Elbows up. This is just... They don't want you to know. They're talking about the picketing. They're talking about the union and the pay, and they're now gone. Gone. Another one bites the dust, Ontario. You got to get rid of Dougie and get a real conservative in there. Somebody who is going to actually, hold Carney's feet to the fire. It's the same Liberal Party. Canada has been decimated. Trump is just taking advantage of a situation. He's just another rich man looking out for America. He doesn't care about Canadians. He may like us, but it's all about his job. He has to appease the American people. Love him or hate him, they love him down south. As much as the news goes on, oh, blah, 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 Trump. They love him. Well, why wouldn't you? When your wages are going up, energy's going down, houses are going down, everything is being corrected. Where's mainstream? Lying through their teeth, just like I showed you with Jolie the airhead. We are in serious problems, and I'm serious. I'm a numbers guy. What I'm seeing right now, we are going to crash. It is happening in real time. And Trump, he's just here to pick up the pieces. What little bit will be left after the global elites and Carney are done pilfering through and picking the bones, picking the what's left of the meat off our bones. We need a full reset in government. And we need somebody to go in and actually start charging politicians. We need to see the phones, the private emails, all of the communications. We need it all exposed. We need to see all of their investments, every last bit. And then we have to set laws to ensure that nobody that runs or wins in an election, be it, I don't care if you're running for the mayor or if you're running for the prime minister, there should be laws where you have to have full transparency for whatever, the rest of your life, because you should not profit off of changing law. They're supposed to be done for the benefit of the country, the province, or the community. And we have been duped, people. And this entire system is starting to crumble. We are in a depression. And our government is out printing more money. We're in big trouble. Big trouble. And I will be doing an episode on that here in the future. I've been just kind of compiling a bunch of different facts and figures. Problem is they are changing daily. I can't keep ahead of how fast Canada is crumbling. I'm talking avalanche, people. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I may spin another one off here tonight. I got a few more things I want to go over, kind of pertaining to a lot of what this episode had. We'll see how the day goes, how my evening goes. Like I said, I've got a lot on my plate here at home. I got a person I love dearly who's in the hospital. Shout out to you, Auntie Lila. I'm really close with her. She's going through some serious health issues from a fall. At vehicle breakdowns, it's just been kind of crazy, and I don't have the fan base yet to make any money. It's going to take me forever to get there, but it's a hope, it's a pipe dream. So please, you guys, if you enjoy the channel, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. You can help me out. Buy some of my clothing. I get a kickback. You get to advertise my name. It's great quality. There's merch on there, stickers, you name it. Mouse pads, and I got more that will be coming out. Or you can donate to the email attached right there, scrolling across the screen and in the description. Until next time, you guys, please like, share, and subscribe. If you are, punch that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm Alias Guy. Stay informed.